first tattoo. So it was, the apprenticeship started before that, and it was a real half-assed apprenticeship. I didn't really sit in a shop, and you know, it was people that were going to charge me to teach me, and that's how I came about it. So, you know, but actually hanging out in shops would have been maybe from '88. Well, actually way before that, but like actually with the thought of I want to be in a tattoo shop would have been from like 1988, somewhere around 88, 89, where I was trying to, there wasn't that many shops, you know, there was Electro Art, there was this biker guy Hap, there was a shop, Aransas Pass, Bob Shaw's, and there was a shop in Kingsville, Dixie Design. Other than that, it would have been nobody from here all the way to Edinburgh was Dr. Powers. Back in the day, and I don't think there was nobody in Brownsville. I think there was a guy named Lalo in Laredo, and a place called House of Pain in Laredo. Other than that, that was it. Like it wasn't like now there's like 40 shops in Corpus. And back then it was just real few and far between. Tattooing wasn't a big thing. If you saw somebody with sleeves, they're more likely a tattoo artist, so they had just gotten out of prison. There was nobody heavily tattooed, and this ain't that long ago, 30-something years ago, you know.
Mostly back then were the Pachucos. And this is something that I think started at about that time. They are the ones mostly who had tattoos, and they were very, I don't know what the word would be, primitive. I think the tattoos were done with just poking needles into the skin, and it wasn't what I would consider a work of art. The Pachucos and the Pachucos were, I think now they the way they would dress or whatever is, and I didn't learn this term until I was an adult, about the zoot suits, how they dressed, and you may not even know what that is. The Pachucos would wear loose fitting pants, tight around the ankles, but like dress pants, you know, with a crease, whatever. Nice, but a very different style. And they would wear, and this is just generally, not everybody dressed that way, but most of the Pachucos would wear pointed shoes, and they would take their shoes to the shoe shop to add another half sole or sole on the bottom, which would make the front of the shoe go like this. So they walk with their toes facing a little upward. That's the way they dressed. And they're mostly the ones, and usually these were the folks that were, and I'm just making a general statement, it didn't apply to everybody, but generally these were people who were less educated, and there were a lot of those people like that when I was growing up. Just, you know, not very many high school graduates, not very many college graduates. That's the way it was. And they're usually the ones that had tattoos on them. But they were the primitive kind of tattoos, not beautiful, not a work of art.
Well, and again, I'm talking shit there. Like I'm a know-it-all, but I really don't know much. But what I do know is, as far as like tattoo stuff in Texas or South Texas, the real interesting, you know, crap that has come about, or stuff that, I don't say crap, but stuff that come about, is there was this artist, Bill the Beachcomber, not just Bill the Beachcomber, but it was Bill the Beachcomber, L.R. Dean, Earl Brown, Soldier Mac, and they were all in this area, you know, and back in the day. And the earliest I found of them is 1948. I think it's when earliest I've been able to find. So that was like South Texas. But then Bill the Beachcomber, I found a permit to. He was a photographer also, but been tattooing since 1922. For here in Corpus from 1942. Close to here, he had a shop in his daughter said Edinburgh, but the only thing I found is from Raymondville, and from the 40s, from the 30s and the 40s. And he was a white guy from Missouri, somehow ended up down over here and liked it, and he was a white guy, speak and write Mexican and Spanish. his last wife was Mexican, and so that was a lot of the culture back then. Which there's also like a news article which shows L.R. Dean tattooing, and the guy he's tattooing is a man named Mario Sanchez, and so I was really like, I would hear about them growing up. They were on North Beach, and Dean had died in the 70s. Bill died in '84. So growing up as a kid, we would see right where the Lexington's at, and then there's the aquarium. Where the parking lot of the aquarium's at is where Bill's shop was, and Dean was right across the street. And they were there, but we weren't allowed to go in there, because we were kids and couldn't go in there. So, but that was the culture around here, And again, I didn't know anything about him until a few years ago. I bought everything from the daughter. But they kept everything since he died in '84. He had kept everything since he started tattooing in 1922. So I got machines, I got old correspondence from the 20s all the way up until '84. And I have his machines that he used up until like a week. I think he tattooed up there like a week before he died. So his machine still same needles and everything. That's how he tattooed. He was still tattooing the real old school way, like no ink caps. It was still like cold cream jars, same ink for everybody, same needle for everybody. He would do 30 tattoos, same needle. And so real stuck like the old way, like what that kind of stuff went out in the 50s, early 60s. He was still tattooing that way into the 80s. That's just the way he tattooed. I collect a bunch of old tattoo stuff. So you see the artwork from the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, 20s, from the 20s, even up until the 70s. There was no internet. If you wanted to, there was probably no like videotape where you can stop something and draw it off the TV. If you wanted to see a lion, you would go to a library and hopefully find a book of a lion where you could turn into a tattoo. Or I have an old tattoo design, Bill the Beachcomber. It's two designs, a lion and a tiger. It's the same body, so it's like the tiger and it has stripes. And then he just drew a mane, took the stripes off and drew a mane, and it's a lion. But you can tell it's the same design, But there's a design drawn from in the 40s. So I mean that he was working with what he had, and so that's the good thing about it. I mean that stuff is beautiful because he overcame. I need to draw a lion. I need to draw a tiger. Then you can just take off the stripes and the mane and then paint it black, and you got a panther. So that's the cool thing about then. But then nowadays we have you can Google a lion and you can draw something beautiful. So that's been the real cool thing about the stuff that's getting done nowadays. And again, the people getting, I'm thinking probably when I started, it was probably 80% guys getting tattooed and 20% women. Now I'm pretty sure we have to be pushing like 70% women getting tattooed and 30% guys. Women do way better getting tattooed. They're a lot nicer, a lot softer. They smell a lot better than a guy. So that's been the good thing, the positive thing, just an up and up for the shops,
So I started learning how to tattoo in the mid to late 90s, and back then it was different, but it was a little. We didn't have soccer moms getting tattooed yet, but we did pretty decent, especially here in Laredo. I always feel like the wave crashes everywhere and hits Laredo at the very end, so we're always the last to hear everything, especially back then. So, where we stayed decently busy, but we were doing like Cherry Creek stuff, which is like this really 90s brand of tattoo flash. So we were doing a lot of eagles and gargoyles and fairies and stuff. We didn't get into, at least for as long as I remember, we didn't have a lot of people doing full sleeves and stuff like that. So it was different, but it wasn't terrible. We've been open. Por Vida Tattoos has been around since 2014. I think that we try to be as clean and just really like we try to give the best vibes that we possibly can, man. I think that's the thing that sets us apart from a lot of other shops, is that we're not trying to be something that we're not. What you see is what you get. I think we're the only shop in South Texas that has almost 100% painted flash on the walls, like hand painted stuff. Like I don't think anybody else in town, not just in town, but in the South Texas area has this much hand painted art. Which is something we're really proud of. The shop's just it's a thing of its own. It has its own life, man. Like, it's so crazy that, I mean, we just did a remodel, and it's like 100%. Just the vibes are just really clean and nice, and I'm always burning my Palo Santo and stuff to make sure we're all on the same frequency, man. So it works out really well.
So this all started in 2002. I was 18 years old, and I was a senior in high school. Back when I was a senior in high school, I didn't essentially know what I wanted to do with my life, as an artist at least. Of course, college was something that I was going to be attempting, right? But it all started my senior year. I got my first tattoo here at this very shop. It wasn't Lionheart Tattoos at the time, it was called Flamin' Heart Tattoos. And once I set foot into this building, my eyes were kind of like, wow, this is something I've never actually been around myself, right? Got my first tattoo. As I'm getting it done on my left leg, I start to kind of like think about it. I'm like, maybe I can do something like this, That was easier said than done, because getting my foot in the door was going to be probably one of the hardest things before I started my career as a tattoo artist. And why that is because back then things were a little bit different. They weren't as, I want to say, like friendly as today's shops are. I was trying to show my worth or prove my worth to the people that worked here already, and to them, like, they were up here, and anyone wanting to start was just bottom feeder level, So me, I had to be extremely persistent. So during my senior year, I had to like show them that I really wanted this. Every day after school, I'd come straight over here. In fact, right after graduation, after I walked, I didn't go anywhere but here. I came straight here afterwards. And eventually they saw that I had it in me to where I was going to dedicate most of my time, almost like 90% of my time, if not 100, to this business. So 2002 is when it started, 18, like I said, and I've been doing it ever since. So.
Everything's changed, man. But it's a constant change. It's always changing. And I think that people tend to get really mad when it comes to change. So you see all these people constantly, fighting against it. But dude, it was awesome. Like the late '90s was really awesome because it was the tail end of the era where nobody gave a shit. Back then it was like we drink and hang out. You had dudes that were doing coke in the back and playing dice in the front, and it was a tattoo shop. You kind of expected it. And then we had also towards the late '90s the shops that were a little bit more boutique that were popping up, which had never really been a thing before. There was a couple of shops here and there, but it wasn't the way it is now, where everybody's a boutique shop. So it was a big, big mixture of everything. And then fast forwarding it to now, it's super interesting because we get everything. We get everything now. So it feels like a whole entire lifetime difference. Like late '90s, man, craziness, people everywhere. And then little by little, you started to see the change, and now it's like really cool.
I've been influenced to a large extent through my growing up in the church, being an active church goer, member of church. My mother was very religious, and it was generally frowned upon. My family, my grandparents, my parents always told us not to get tattoos. So I started learning about that from my parents and my grandparents. But I didn't like them to begin with. So I never really even came close to getting a tattoo.
Some people were like, "Man, you should be doing, you shouldn't be doing that. It's gonna hurt your business, And then really I didn't get no positive out of it, to be honest with you. Family members, well, I don't really care what anybody thought. I didn't care my family members, whatever they thought. I didn't care. I was gonna do it regardless if anybody had any opinions. You know what I'm saying? I saw it. I saw the vision that I wanted to do, and I did it, and it was the best thing I ever did.
Really, a lot of people in my family didn't really talk to me for a while because I broke the one rule: do not get a tattoo. I was kind of, I don't want to say discriminated, but I was kind of pulled away from everyone else because I had got a tattoo. And my grandfather, my dad's side, really, really strict on that. And for a while, he really did not like me.
Back in the day, there were small tattoos. You didn't want to go too extreme because of that time and that era. It wasn't,
Accepted.
not accepted, so everything was covered up.
So I was on the cusp of like when things were still kind of like not really accepted to where they were almost going to be like normal, especially down here where we're from. Like I always feel like we're like at least like a year or two late from like everyone else, at least just like mental and mentality wise in my opinion. So I was tattooing and it was still kind of like almost like still frowned upon, I guess you could say, like where it seemed like such a delinquent thing to do, like only like gang members and prisoners and stuff like that had tattoos, or bikers like were running shops, stuff like that, even though in reality that wasn't the case. Like there was all kinds of artists that were tattooing at that moment down here, but like I said, like the views that people had from the outside, they weren't as open-minded as they are now. So
We call it the Por Vida Tattoo Fest, and we started it because nobody in town had ever had one before. The one that we did have in town had been maybe about 10 years ago. And it sounds like I'm talking shit, but I'm not, because this is absolutely seriously true. The guy who threw that, the first convention that Laredo had, was a one-day thing at a like a reception hall. The dude who did it was a home tattooer that was a cook at Whataburger, and that was the first convention. And he had like a bunch of people that were set up. It was weird, and he invited us. We told him no. He put us on the flyer anyways. We told him to take it off. It was a big mess. It was super cringy and really bad, and that was Laredo's first taste of a tattoo convention. And for me, it just left such a sour taste in my mouth, thinking that this is what people think it is here in town. So me and my wife ended up planning it out, and I think I ended up, first show was probably like 30 booths, 40 booths. And we were lucky that we got this huge pavilion area that we have here in town. And so we rented it out. And we had to find pipe and drape covers, which are those big curtains, and we couldn't find anybody in town that did it. I reached out to a couple of friends, so I had somebody from the Valley come and do it for me, and she's been our pipe and drape person ever since then. But it was just so many little stumbling blocks to get to where we're at. Like we had to figure out a lot of stuff because no one in town had ever done it before, and we're the first and only one so far. I mean, I'm calling it now. Within the next 5 years, there's going to be 2 or 3 throughout the year. It's just going to happen. Like we're not. There's 2 or 3 in the Valley. There's like 5 in San Antonio every year. There's like 5 in Houston every year. Like it's one of those things where people try to capitalize on that one thing and they all just do it, and it's cool. It happens. But we try really hard to make it a fun time for the tattooers more than the public, because public are going to show up no matter what. It's the public, man. They like tattoos. They hear about it. They want to hang out. It's a party. They want to chill. They want to do stuff. But what we do that's different is, we're not, we don't have a lot of like corporate interest in our stuff. Everything we do is, from the ground up, and it's just us, man. We don't have advertisers. We don't have people that sponsor us. This year we actually had sponsorship, and it was like a couple of tattoo companies that gave us merchandise to give to the artists. Everything else is out of our pockets, man.
So, when it comes to competitions as far as tattooing, they're usually held at tattoo conventions or expos. That's something that I always love to shoot for. Not so much to prove that I'm the best or anything like that, but I'm a competitive person by nature, and it's not to say that I like to rub stuff in anyone's faces. It's more like, okay, like there's a competition, I'm in competitive mode. I've been doing this for so long. I want to see if I can at least like be close to the other good artists, or surpass them in any way, right? It's always it's a fun challenge for me. So a lot of the times, like, everyone has that same mentality. I'm like, okay, cool, we're gunning for this. Rarely, or in fact, never at all, do you ever see someone say like, well, I'm gonna smash you, so like, don't even try and like do this, right? It's more like, okay, we're all trying to do the same thing, right? Like, let's see who can get it, right? And of course, afterwards, everyone's like, oh, hey, congratulations and stuff like that. But yeah, like that, it all just comes down to the type of convention that you're at. Like, I've done horror conventions where it was mainly kind of like a Comic-Con for horror themed things, but they also had tattooing going on at the same time. So while I was there, I was doing nothing but horror themed tattoos, and I did win like a good amount there. There will be a convention happening soon that's going to be anime themed, you know. That'll be in somewhere near Dallas. I can't remember exactly where. That's going to be the next one that a few of us are going to, and I'm pretty sure the categories are going to be something, you know, like best hentai or something, you know, I don't know, whatever it is. But regardless, like, that's where I like to do my homework and be like, okay, like, how can I, you know, at least like compete by doing that particular category. But then you also have like very like traditional stuff like best color, small color, medium color, best traditional, best neo-traditional, best portrait, whatever it is that they have for that day. And it's you can either pre-plan it, where you can be like, hey, certain customer that I know gets really cool stuff, do you want to be my canvas for this particular expo so that we can try to win this? I've done that at times too. Or if you get lucky enough where you're at a convention that you don't know anyone, but someone comes up like, hey, you want to do something cool? I'm like, yeah, let's try and win something. And from there, you know, it'll be kind of like two peas in a pod where you're like, all right, let's gun for it, man. And it all depends on how you play your cards or how you set them up, you know. So
I think it's kind of to each their own, man. Like down here, obviously, like especially here in the valley, like people are more culturally like in tune with themselves, you know, whether it be like just like the Mexican culture itself or anything like that. Like you can express that side of you through tattooing. Like I've seen a lot of tattoos come through the door that are like Mexican based or Latino based and stuff like that. A lot of people get like LGBTQ stuff, and like it's opening up a lot like in that whole aspect of tattooing. But I do think that the Valley provides something that's different than other places. You know what I mean? Like for instance, we can go like we'll shoot to like, I don't know, Salem, for instance, right? Like all the stuff that they do there is very like black work oriented or like witch oriented, and that's because of the culture that they're in. Whereas like here, you know, straying away from like weird stuff. You know, we have like the like I've seen people get like little conchas and like little, you know, just fucking little dumb tattoos. Like I'm supposed to tattoo a frog with a chancla, chasing a little tadpole soon. Like it's just, you know, cultural things. It's pretty cool.
Definitely, man, but I think it's a little bit more worldwide culture than it is Texas or South Texas culture. Because when it comes to Texas tattooing, a lot of us are in the same group. Because so I think that when it comes to South Texas and North Texas, or South Texas, the rest of Texas, tattooing's all the same. It's one big awesome. We're all together. Like the styles all together. You know, it's the might of all of our art is really complex and it's really diverse. But when it comes down to it, if anybody from Texas goes to Germany, Texas style, they know what it is. The same way the Italians have their style. Like they're very beautiful, complex designs. Very minimal colors: green, red, brown, yellow. Super beautiful. But when you see it, you know it's somebody from Italy that did that. Or the Spanish, the same thing. Very colorful. Their color concepts are super different than a lot of other people. They'll use colors that are not only complementary, but then they'll use some weird, wacky ass color off to the side. And the way they draw everything up, very Spanish. And a lot of people will copy that style. So there are people in Texas that do that style, but they still do it where it feels like Texas. I don't know how to explain it more than that. Like it's just so weird how we have a Texas style.
You see a simple cross or the 3 dots or your neighborhood, you know, initials on your hand, praying hands, you know, the Virgin Mary, skulls, reapers, you know, 80s, a lot of 80s stuff was like wizards, and you know, and again, this is seeing like what my brothers were doing, you know, they were tattooing the neighborhood guys, a lot of the cholas, the lowrider stuff, the lowrider lettering. One of my brothers, my brother Roger, real good artist, so he would draw like that, you know, and he would tattoo a lot, you know, homemade stuff, and it was whatever that lowrider writing, not really graffiti, but it's all these kind of crooked letters, and you know, he would do that real beautifully, and he was just a good artist, and you know, so he did a lot of, he was, you know, he's born in the 60s, so he was doing a lot of like the 70s kind of cholas, and you know, and the lowrider art, and he was same thing, kind of cholo back then. So my other brother was more just real good technical tattooing, couldn't draw nothing, but you would find it in lowrider magazine, or now they have lowrider arte, but you would just see those roses. Or pretty much a lot of us had cousins or you know, uncles that were in prison, or camaradas, you know, so they would send you the envelopes or the paños, and you know, using a lot of that kind of stuff as reference.
I think personally that there are a lot of different kind of tattooers. I know tattooers that are amazing tattooers that are like photocopy machines. You put a picture in front of them, they'll copy it exactly, and it looks absolutely fucking beautiful. Then you've got people that are on the opposite spectrum of that, where they are true artists, and you know, they'll look at a picture and they'll just draw it on you with a marker, and it's the most amazing back piece you've ever seen. And then you have people that are right down the middle, which is, I guess I would consider myself right down the middle, where, you know, I'll tattoo whatever. I can mimic almost any style. I can tattoo anything pretty decently. I'm not the best tattooer in the world. I'm not the worst. I'm like right down the middle. So, you know, the things that I do, there's an art to it. The things that people do, that when they do those beautiful Sharpie tattoos, there's an art to it. But even the people that do exact copies of like stuff that's realism, there's an art to it. You've got to kind of know what you're doing.
Multiple stuff. I will say, when I started off though, there was a style called New School that was super heavily like inspirational to me. That's what was going on. Like, it was super big. Like I said, back then, graffiti like also implemented a lot of the artists that were here at the time. So we were doing a lot of like really like bold and like wacky looking stuff. Not so much tasteless wacky, but just like, dang, like that's pretty out there, you know what I mean? A lot of color. I still love doing stuff like that. Of course, nowadays, like, my artwork has definitely changed.
Anywhere between like the standards, like traditional, you can do like tribal, which is super old school. You got like Japanese traditional, which just goes back like 500 years. Like, there's a ton of stuff. There's a bunch of new stuff that doesn't necessarily make sense to me, but at the same time, I mean, like, more power to you, you know? So when I first started working here, it was very fundamental to do like traditional style tattoos. Traditional is kind of one of those things that's it's the basics, you know. It's like fundamentals. You gotta have your clean lines, your fully saturated color, and all that. So traditional is definitely something that I like to mess with a lot. But nowadays I do a lot of like 1930s cartoons. So like Betty Boop, you know, like Cuphead is one of the things that people are really into nowadays. But I grew up watching those kinds of cartoons with my grandparents and stuff like that, so it's just something I hold pretty close. And I had a friend of mine not too long ago basically told me that I should run with it, and I basically have, and it's something that I like to do pretty consistently. Like, I just got finished doing one not too long ago. So.
Oh, there's no one blanket reason, man. Everybody gets tattooed for different reasons. We have people that walk in and they want to get tattooed for, you know, a lost loved one, or you know, in a remembrance of somebody. We have people that come in because they think they're cool, you know, and they just want to get something really rad. We have people that walk in to get tattooed because, you know, unfortunately, and we don't really do them, but we've had people try to walk in and get tattooed because their significant others pushing them, like, you know, you're gonna get my name, and we usually cut them right off. We're like, you know, we're not interested, man, you know, sorry. And they'll get angry, they'll get pissed, and we're just like, dude, I'm not gonna brand your girlfriend, man. I'm not gonna brand your wife. Like, that's really weird. It's irresponsible. And you know, eventually go somewhere else or get it done at someone's house or something. But like, the reasoning behind getting tattooed is just so varied nowadays, man. It's not where before it used to be because it was cool, or you were getting something to remember somebody by. And now it's just, I literally have kids that are, you know, 18, 19 years old coming in, getting tattooed because it's an aesthetic. I'd never heard that before. I'm like, wait, what? And they're like, no, man, I've got an aesthetic going on. So they've got their jewelry and they've got their clothing and their number tattoos or their weird glitchy tattoos. is part of their look. And I'm just like that's cool, man. I'm down for it. I mean, I'm gonna make money either way. But for me, it's like really weird. It's like, man, you're getting tattooed because it goes with your aesthetic. It's your vibe. Like, that's a really weird reason to get tattooed.
I don't know. I just like putting shit on myself. Like, I was definitely one of those kids that just like drew on himself all the time. My parents would get pissed about it. Like, they hated the fact that I was just constantly drawing on myself. And I remember when I got my first tattoo, I hid it from my parents for an entire year. Like, just, it was right here. Like, super straight to the point. So I don't know why my parents didn't pay attention to me. But definitely being a canvas, you get to put whatever you want on yourself. Like, I got a Jesus spider, you know, like I got a bunch of weird stuff, man. Like I got a bunch of weird stuff. Like it's just cool. I don't know. It's fun. I feel like a lot of people, especially nowadays, they come and get tattooed as a sense of like clearing their head and like being away from their life problems. You know, they come into the shop and stuff like that, and everybody's really friendly. Everybody's like knows each other. You know, everybody likes to be here. We try to make it as comfortable as possible, whether it be with snacks or just, you know, being in a good environment.
The things that we're doing on a daily basis is it's basically a ritual, man. We're cutting someone, we're drawing blood from that person, and in the drawing of blood, we're exchanging energy, and you know we're having conversations, and you know I've had people just cry for absolute no reason, man. It'll be quiet as hell, 30 minutes of me tattooing them, and they'll just break down crying. And I'm like, you know, are you okay? And they just, you know, letting it all go. And then tattoo's done. And I'm like, are you fine? And he's like, yeah, I don't know what happened to me. I just had I feel like a dam broke, and I just let it all go. And I feel better.
What areas that were tattooed? It was this one. Then I had got one on my hand, one semicolon on my wrist. Then like literally 6 months later, my friend passed away. So after that, I had going through some things, and another 4 months after that, I had got the memorial piece, and that was like my first. I don't want to say pro, but it was my first actual tattoo that was done at a tattoo shop. In my point of view, it helped me get through a lot of things. One of the things I was going through was self-harm. So instead of hurting myself and just leaving a scar, I would hurt myself and get artwork all over my body.
I feel like it's one of those things to kind of like break the norm, you know what I mean? Like I feel like everybody's just kind of a carbon copy sort of deal. Everybody's got the same sort of skin. So you get to decorate it with whatever you want, you know, anything you like, anything you want, anything you care about, really.
Man, it gave me life. Becoming a tattooer has 100% given me a purpose in life. It's not just a job, and it's not a career. Like, it's basically giving me everything that I have, man. Like, I don't think I could have figured any of this stuff out in life without tattooing. Just the fact that, you know, if growing up I was, you know, if I was homeless or, you know, squatting at somebody's house for a while, I always had tattooing to, you know, feed me. You know, like I always had it. It wasn't just making money, but it was like, you know, everything that had to do with tattooing, like, you know, creating art. I would sell a sheet, make money, I'd eat. And sometimes it came down to that bare, like that really terrible thread where, you know, it was either work or starve. You know, and it took care of me when I needed it the most. And now that I'm older, I think that I'm trying to take care of tattooing just as much as it took care of me. And that's the thing that I don't think a lot of people seem to understand about tattooing, that it's not just, you know, it's not just an art form. It's definitely not just an industry. It's a really beautiful craft. It's magic, man, that we have to take care of it. You know, it's like have you seen Encanto, the movie Encanto, or they're all taking care of that little flame? That's what tattooing is to me. It's a little flame that everyone's trying to take care of, and it's giving everybody their magical powers, man, because that's all this is.
I feel like I treat the business good, and it treats me good too. There can be like dark paths that certain anyone's can take, right? Like in any business. But I feel like like I said, if you take care of the business, it's going to take care of you. It's opened a lot of doors of opportunity. Me as an artist, like I get to showcase a lot more than just tattooing, but I do these career days and I go to these schools, right? Like even elementary schools, like it's so kind of, it's almost like odd to hear that a tattoo artist is going to these like young kids to talk to them about art. And mind you, like I do know how to speak to people, so obviously I'm not going to start talking to 8-year-olds about what kind of sleeves they want to get, right? None of that. It's more like I'm inspiring them to become something as an artist themselves, right? And I always use this example, like you don't necessarily have to be an artist, right? Like if you like being a hairdresser, that's art itself, right? If you're a cake decorator, that's or cake maker. You know, there's so much stuff that applies your creativity to what your craft, right? So I feel like that's something that I like to give back. You know, if there's ever like an artist that's curious as to how I got started off or what it is that inspires me, like I'm not so much like a gatekeeper. I'm more like, well, this, if you really want to know, this is how it is, right? And I try not to be like a schmuck about it. You know, I don't want to be like, well, I've been doing this for so long. What makes me think that you can do it? Like I've never really been that way, right? So I feel like as a tattoo artist, I would want other artists to kind of look at it like, hey, this is a career opportunity for me, right? Because honestly, I didn't know what I was going to be doing in life, and to be perfectly honest, like I'm super glad that I did this. Like there's nothing in my opinion that could have been better than this in my position as an artist.
One of the first rules with tattoos is like once you stop learning, you're no longer good. Like the second you stop caring about making yourself better, you suck. Like, you know, like it's kind of one of those things, like you're never gonna stop learning things. And a lot of people, especially when it comes to being artists, I've met a lot of artists that are super veteran that still tell me that they're learning to this day. Like they're never gonna stop. And I don't know, there's some people that have huge egos, and that's kind of the downfall of their entire like career. So you just got to be open, and you got to continuously learn. You got to see what people are doing next and try to do better. You know?
I think I'm on my 4th year of apprenticing, 2 years tattooing, or I guess it's 3 years tattooing needle to skin, and it's done a lot for me. It's set me up for, I feel at least, a very good future. Being 26, I feel like tattooing is a type of career where you get what you put into it. So if you're gonna sit here and not change with the times or adapt with the times, you're gonna fall behind, and that's not good. So it's opened up a lot of doors for me. I've met a lot of amazing people, amazing artists. I mean, I've even became friends with people overseas because they tattoo and we found each other mutually on Instagram, so like we're friends now. It's helped me develop my art style, it's helped me develop my work ethic. And it's helped me build a very strong bond between like me and my personal self, as well as me and my clientele, and along with myself and the shop. So it's done a lot, and that's just like the tip of the iceberg. I can go on about a lot of the things that it's done for me. Oh, it's also done a lot for my mental health. That's really cool. It gives me a reason to like wake up every morning, want to come and like tattoo my clients, and even if it's a piece that I'm not like too crazy about, which happens, like the action of tattooing is what really drives me to continue to do it, I think.
There's a lot of opinions out there whether tattooing is not art or it is art, but I feel like it definitely takes a lot of skill and practice, and you know, you have to be really serious about it, because there's a lot of people nowadays that just do it just for the fun, which is cool as an outlet and stuff like that, but I feel like to take it seriously and respect the craft, like, you know, you have to consider it art in probably one of the most rawest forms, because I mean, it's the only thing you take with you when you die, you know, like it's something that's going to be with you forever, and that's what's important in that whole aspect of being an artistic thing, you know.
I think from the beginning, even when it was affiliated with gangs and stuff like that, it's always been a form of art. Again, it's like transferring an image or a hand-drawn image onto the skin doesn't really change the fact that it's not art, it's just a different form of art as compared to like charcoal, watercolor, painting, sculpting. It's just a different medium of working with art.
It definitely evolved because it's a lot more accepted, you know. People aren't bashing other people for putting stuff on themselves. when I started off, a lot of the parents of that era were telling my clients, you know, as an 18-year-old, like my clients that were around my same age at that time, they're like, oh no, you better not get that. I'm gonna be so upset at you, disappointed in you. So I heard that a lot. Nowadays, you know, you have like your mothers and daughters getting matching tattoos. You know, like you have people coming in saying like, hey, you tattooed on my mom. You know, like she loves tattoos, or you tattooed on my dad, and so on and so forth, right? I have like my teacher clients that have been tattooed numerous times. You have all kinds of people that are getting tattoos and not so much worried about like what it is that people are thinking, you know. I feel like as time's progressed, those people of that era that were feeling like, oh man, I can't show it off because so and so is gonna get mad, that's already over and done with. We're starting to go into the future where like, oh yeah, everyone has tattoos just about, right?
People are dying. Simple as that. The new generation is coming up. It's more acceptable.
Yeah.
The people that had that, now you know, that would look at you and that, you know, that side of disgust because you had a tattoo, he's dead. So it don't matter what he thinks anymore. But his child, you know, that when he left, his legacy too is more accepting to it. You know, and then his child's gonna be more accepting to it. And that's the way it's gonna go, to the point it's not gonna be. Now, if you look at a person without a tattoo, you're going, what's wrong with you? It's already turned the other way around.
Yeah.
You know? And sometimes there is something wrong.
Tattooing has come fucking far, like super far. Sorry, I don't know.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, super far, man. Like tattooing is one of those things. Like I feel like there was just some dude somewhere. I don't know exactly where, but they're like, I should just mark myself and make sure I look pretty cool doing it and stuff. So whether it comes down to like the tribal aspect, where it's like a meaning of like being a warrior, or just like a cultural thing to just like expressing yourself for what it is. I mean, I feel like it's just come a long way.
And I would agree with your statement. It's come a long ways from hardly anybody having tattoos, and gradually more people obtaining tattoos, getting tattoos. And of course, I think a lot of it had to do with the quality of the tattoos. And over the years, I've learned in talking to people with tattoos that they do certain things. They have certain tattoos to represent something in their lives. Either, you know, their mother, or they have something written to honor their father or the wife. They have the name of the wife or the husband, and like that. It's been a slow. I'm 75 years old. It's been a slow process, and I don't really recall how many years ago it started to become really popular. But I mean, now I see. Shoot, I would say at least probably half of the people that I know have tattoos. Maybe it isn't 50%, maybe it's 30%, maybe it's 60%, but a lot of people have tattoos. And I've been observing tattoos all my life because I've never been a fan of tattoos, right? And the way I look at it is, and this is my own personal opinion, I've gotten to the point where I don't criticize people for having tattoos. It doesn't really affect my relationship with people who have tattoos. If I like you, I like you whether you have a tattoo or you don't have any, or you have a bunch. You know, I still don't like tattoos, but I've noticed that a lot of people in all walks of life, uneducated, educated, mostly people in sports, famous people, tattoos, you know. So it's something that I accept. It's something that I accept.